Everyone who joins a football academy has the same dream: to make it pro.
Every young player wants to be in an academy. They want to be playing Premier League teams. They want to be wearing the football kits of the teams that they support.
But the reality is most won't make it, and when the dream ends, it hits hard.
One week you're walking around like a building and there's like all these championship players. You've got the likes of Calvin Phillips walking around, and then next week you're at a till and you're like, I actually don't know what to do here.
What is life like for young academy players, hopeful of beating the odds?
Oh, I mean, it's almost not impossible, but you have to be good. And it's not just about being good technically. Tactically, have the right attitude. Sometimes timing as well. You know, you have to be in the right place at the right time.
How does the experience compare for boys and girls?
The academy system for women is kind of in its infancy compared to men's, right? And it's playing catch up quickly, I think. Not necessarily in a good way.
What happens next for players who don't make the cut, and how are they supported when the dream ends? This is where it all begins. Across the UK, young players enter academies like this, chasing the chance of getting a professional football contract.
The dream would probably be to be a Premier League footballer, winning trophies at the highest level possible. And yeah, I think if I keep working hard and stick in and listen to the advice I get given, I think I can do that.
Football academies are elite schools for aspiring pro footballers. They're run by professional clubs. Academies find and train the best young talent, hoping to turn them into future stars.
It's very busy, very intense. A typical day would be breakfast in the morning, gym, training, education, analysis. So it's a big shift to go from what we call our hybrid training model, where the boys go to school, they'll train in the evenings. All of a sudden, they're thrown into a full-time football environment.
Every year, tens of thousands of young people will sign with an academy from as young as 8 years old. But here's the reality. Only a tiny fraction will end up with a professional contract.
I feel like the hardest part being in the academy what people wouldn't see would be the pressure to perform, as you're constantly being watched. And in academy football, everyone at the club is fighting to get a professional contract. So I feel like at the same time you're playing for your best mates, but you're sort of competing against them.
Every time we sign a player, we fully explain the length of their registration or their contract and the realities of that. And I think that's really important for the players and the parents particularly to understand that every single player will leave this football club. It might be in 1 year, it might be in 10 years, we don't know.
So how does this system work? To understand that, we need to look beyond Burnley at the top 4 leagues of English football. So the Premier League, the Championship, League One and League Two. Across them, 92 clubs, most of which run academies. Underneath them sits the National League and a vast non-league system. Hundreds more clubs feeding talent upwards. And it's not just England. Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, they all have their own professional leagues and academy systems, though smaller in scale.
There's something between 12 and 14,000 boys that are in our academy system at any one time, from under 9 up to the age of under 21 across those 90 odd clubs.
In 2012, the Premier League introduced the Elite Player Performance Plan. It's known as the EPPP. It's a framework with the mission of producing more and better homegrown players through a player-led approach.
Currently we have around 90 licensed academies. And a bit like we categorise teams in the Premier League to Championship, League One and League Two, we have a categorisation system for our academies. We have 4 categories of academy, and that is determined by things like the facilities that they have, the quality of staffing, the number of full-time staff they have, some of the education and welfare provisions that a club can deliver, and the level of resource that they're able to make to invest in their academy.
Undoubtedly, over the past 15 years or so, the academy setup has received more investment. That's largely come from Premier League money. And I think there's been a growth in support staff, particularly at the top-end clubs, the clubs that are in the Premier League and the top half, perhaps, of the Championship, Category 1, Category 2 academies. Has it probably resulted in the haves and have-nots a little bit more and some level of inequality? Probably so. I think that probably is the case.
There's always been a principle around supporting education for young players, but it's really has transformed. The provision has been enhanced. There's a bigger emphasis on supporting those players, and that's demonstrating the type of players you're seeing out on the field today.
I would want to stay in football. I'd maybe want to go into coaching if football didn't work out, because I feel like it's what I love and I feel like it's always what I want to do. So, and I definitely want to help other players, because I know I'm in the situation of being in a scholarship.
If football didn't work out, I probably don't know what I'd do.
Geezer at the back post, just leave him alone. If he wants to run it like...
So, with the odds stacked against you, what does it take to break through the academy ranks and make it as a professional footballer?
I knew I wanted to do football from the day I seen footballers running around on the TV screen.
I think the first time I played football was when I was 4 or 5. To be fair, my first experience of watching my older brother when he was at Welling Pegasus. So he was under 6s, under 7s, and I used to just watch him in awe.
The dream starts early, and so does the work of football academies. Clubs begin training boys as young as 6, but official contracts can only be signed from age 8 when they join as under-9 players. As they progress, the next milestone comes at the end of the under-16 season. That is when players may be offered scholarships, up to 3 years of full-time football as apprentices. Finally, as they approach age 17, players will try as hard as they can to be offered a professional contract.
When kids come into academies at really, really young ages, they're extremely impressionable, and they are excited, and they think that this is going to turn into something called a professional career. But when you're 7, you don't really know what that means, but you sort of think it's a thing, right? And everyone buys into it, and everyone gets excited, and your family gets excited.
5.5 was when I first went to Leeds. I went into one of their development centres. I was a left footer, and there's not many of those around, which was always kind of an advantage. So yeah, I knew I was all right. And then obviously at under-9s, I signed a contract there. And then I kind of stayed at Leeds within that system from 9, 10s, 11s, 12s, all the way up to the time to do my scholarship. And at that point, you're like, wow, you know, everyone else is kind of going to stay in school. I'm going to go and have 2 years with my mates playing football.
I knew I was a good player because I was 10 years old. I was captain of my local team. I scored lots of goals, and I was scouted by Watford. So that was when I had my first introduction to, you know, academy football. So being in an academy, you do realise that you are better than the majority, because I think every young player wants to be in an academy. They want to be playing Premier League teams. They want to be wearing the football kits of the teams that they support.
I got the trial at Leeds, and I remember before I went, I was nervous, and I got put on a 6-week trial, and they offered me a contract within the first 2 weeks. So you're getting paid playing the sport you love, but then you're also in an environment where you're seeing yourself develop as an athlete, as a young boy. That competitiveness, it pushes you to be better. It's kind of like a false reality, if I'm honest, because it's not real life.
Life at a football academy puts a lot of pressure on teenage shoulders. It's a juggle, going through education, chasing the life of a professional footballer, plus everything else on a teenager's mind.
The pressure's always high. In training, matches, you never know who's watching. You always have eyes on you, even when you don't think it. So when I was 12, I was playing for Glebe FC, and I had 2 cup finals. And it turns out there was a Man City scout watching me. So miraculously, he found my mum in the crowd of people and organised for me to have a trial in August 2018. So I moved to Manchester halfway through year 9. It was difficult making that big decision at a young age to go out with my mum and leave my family, my friends, and basically everything behind.
And it's not just footballers under this pressure, it's the families behind them too.
Sometimes my mum would be up north, my dad would be down south with one of us. And looking back now, you realise it wouldn't have been possible without them. And especially just like in the support way, there was never any pressure. For them, it was just, you know, go out and enjoy your football, be happy and enjoy it for as long as you can.
But despite all of these pressures, as they get older, players have their eye on the prize.
I think everyone's always hopeful, but it's weird because you sat there with kind of 16 lads in my scholarship as it was, and realistically the statistics and things that are out there suggest that maybe 1, 2 might go and ever play a pro game.
Nearly all professional footballers have come through an academy at some point, but only a small number will go on to play professionally.
If you look at Category 1 academy, which we've currently got 29 clubs, the average is about 11% of those players will go on to make at least 20 appearances across the professional leagues in England. So whilst it's not 100%, it's actually quite a healthy number and probably above averages of some other sports.
There are many misconceptions about the actual life of a footballer. It's kind of heralded as this fabulous thing. But listen, I've worked with many elite players, and it is tough. That life is tough, where you have no autonomy over your life. People are running the show for you.
Any young player who wants to become a professional footballer, I think the perception is that they are after lifestyle, fame, money, status. There's no doubt it plays into this. But in working with young players, if you ask them why they want to do what they want to do, it comes down to love of the game, purpose. If you ask them if they do it for free, most of the times they say yes.
So how do you beat these odds? One way is moving between academies in search of better opportunities, hoping to overcome the improbable by joining clubs that promise clearer pathways to a professional contract.
So I worked extremely hard. My mindset was right, my diet was right. But I think naturally I wasn't the most gifted as in with the technical ability. And then as it got to the second year, Leeds started investing in other players from overseas. There was more players coming in, and I was seeing that I wasn't getting picked as often. So that's when I started to think maybe things are not going to work out as I intended here. Rotherham came in. They approached my agent at the time and said they wanted to sign me. They'd seen me play and they want to offer me a pro contract.
Even when you're at the top of your game at a club, players aren't immune to the fear of being released. This is the point at which a player's contract is not renewed, usually because they're not considered likely to progress to the senior team.
I was really lucky to have won, Scholar of the Year 2 years on the bounce. I'd played loads of games. I think in my first year I was involved in like 51 games, got some opportunities to train with the first team, and then kind of in the second year started off in the same fashion. But professional contract, obviously you've got your scholar, that's great, but professional contract, it's like, I was always that doubt in my mind, like, am I going to do enough, am I going to get it?
Generally, there are 2 points in a year when the decision to release players is made. The first is December to January time, during a mid-season review, or it can be at the end of the season, between April and June.
We were told that we were having mid-season meetings. I'd always been told that I was on track to get a scholar. So I'd gone into that meeting with sort of high hopes I'd get my scholarship, and very quickly got told I wasn't. And for me, the rest of the meeting was just out the window. I mean, I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't hear everything that I'd been doing, building up to that moment. I've been playing football since I was 4 or 5. And that was the first real big step, real big decision, and I'd sort of been told that I wasn't good enough.
When I left Leeds and joined Rotherham, I had about 9 months left on my 2-year scholarship, and I was one of the best in the team at the time. So I was under the impression from the way that I'd been playing, the way things had been going, and from what the coaches had been saying, that I was going to get a pro contract. But then when it came to decision day and they said no, I was like, crazy.
I think the younger you are, probably the easier it is because you're less invested in it. You haven't given 10 years of your life to this. You haven't been completely sold the dream. The longer you're in the system, the harder you're going to fall.
Who would you have then in the hole? Just pick a random person who might be in the hole who does that sort of job.
Players can be released for lots of reasons. Sometimes they've been injured, maybe they're not developing into the player a club is after. Even being offered a professional contract doesn't guarantee security.
I went on loan to play for a team called Sheffield FC, and I will never ever forget this day. I remember having a stinker one week. They put me on the bench and there was like 10 minutes left, but I came on off the bench and I got the ball left back, I've cut inside and the lad's just come across and he's just kind of cleaned me up, and I've ended up breaking my left leg. Like I'd be lying if I'd said that wasn't probably the hardest day of my life, even up till now. To break my left leg was just heartbreaking.
For those who are released at a younger age, the stakes are lower. They can move to other academies. They can keep their hopes alive for a future professional contract.
The next move was, all right, let's go and speak to other clubs. So the opportunities for me were there to go to these other clubs, and we set up trials at 5 clubs in that period, and finally I went to Spurs.
When I was at CE, I think it was around December 2020, every player in the team had a meeting with the academy manager on their decisions. When I found out my decision, it was obviously upsetting because moving away from my family, leaving everything behind, and finding that out, yeah, it was upsetting, but I knew it wasn't the end of the world because they helped in finding another team, and then I went to Arsenal.
But finding a new club doesn't necessarily mean that a player can relax.
I realised at Spurs very quickly there was a different level, and I remember got to our professional contracts decision, and between the lads, we're a little bit older now, we would discuss like, oh, you know, you're going to get a pro, you're going to get a pro, and once again I went into that meeting thinking I was going to get a pro, but I was offered a third-year scholar. As a player, I thought I'd improved in so many ways, and then to get told that, okay, we're not sure on you, was honestly, I remember driving home and I was literally wailing in the car. I remember saying to my family, like, I can't feel like this again.
So before I was at Arsenal, I never had any injuries, but when I went to Arsenal, it's just unfortunate. Like, the last 5 minutes of the last warm-up, I tore my hamstring, I basically missed the whole season, and by the time I was back, I was playing the pre-season games and everything, and the last pre-season game, the last 5 minutes, I tore my ACL, and it was bad.
The support the children and young people access, during the academies, is very focused around an area that we call player care. So in all of our clubs, we'll have player care leads, some multiple staff who are really focused on the player experience and supporting them their off-pitch development.
Every club's mandated to have some level of player care support. Largely, the extent of that programme depends on resource, ethos of the club. Have you got academy directors, academy managers who really want to place a lot of emphasis on player care?
I still believe nowadays that there are those moments where players are in shock. I don't think there should ever be that sort of surprise, because I know for some of my friends and some of my teammates at that stage, there was the difficulty of getting over that, being told that you're not good enough at 14, 15, where this is your passion, this is all you've ever wanted to do, and then you're being told you're not good enough. That can be like really tough.
If it wasn't, and they probably wouldn't realise it, like my parents, my godmother, my sister, my family around me at the time, and my friends that weren't in the footballing environment, which I'm still see a lot of now. If it wasn't for them in that time, I say I would have gone under.
One of the biggest misconceptions is around it's a factory. We're just here to produce players. Players are tossed to the side when they're deemed not good enough. There's no empathy, there's no care, to what a club does. It's all about money and producing players. Ultimately, we are here to produce players. However, we're here to produce good players, but we want to produce good people as well. So that I think that's really important.
our players who are going through their school life. They're balancing school with their time at the academy. There's a real emphasis on supporting them during their academics. And that's been demonstrated by some fantastic GCSE results. Like the boys within the academy system are outperforming national averages, especially in English and maths.
In September 2025, the British Psychological Society warned that released academy players urgently needed better mental health support. For some, the pressures of losing a lifelong dream can be overwhelming. Jeremy Whiston was just 18 when he took his own life after being released by Manchester City's academy. An inquest found he didn't receive the help he needed.
I went to school with Jeremy Whiston. I saw it on Instagram and Snapchat that he had passed, and I didn't believe it because I was like, how? Like, what happened? What could have possibly happened to him, innit? And even though like we weren't close, it was someone that obviously I see basically every day that I've trained with and played with before. When I found out how he had passed, I was shocked, because no one should think that they're alone, especially after getting released.
In November 2021, Manchester City told the inquest it had reviewed its processes and made improvements, including the introduction of player exit surveys and the creation of a parent portal.
If we were to take a cross-section of the general population, we would find young men who take their life. But I think we can protect against it. And my approach to that would be to develop people holistically, to see them as people before players. I think that is absolutely vital.
All of our academies, they place elite player development firmly alongside personal growth. And in terms of their education, both formal and informal, that is a really, really important part of their development. Alongside maximising how great or talented a football player they become, there's a real holistic approach to making sure the person as well as the player is supported.
Many young players are left without a clear plan B when they're released, having focused solely on football for years.
The more you are institutionalised, and let's not pretend, footballers are institutionalised. And when they leave that institution, they don't know how to function.
I'd never obviously been or worked anywhere different to being at Leeds. Obviously I went and got a job working at like a cafe shop, and like you think one week you're walking around like a building and there's like all these like championship players, you got the likes of Calvin Phillips walking around, and then next week you're at a till and you're like, I actually don't know what to do here. Like
I had to do like a part-time delivery thing just to get a source of income until obviously I was back in football and playing. Right now I'm still playing football, but I'm just, my agents are just helping me look for other opportunities and trials so I can, properly get back in the game.
When I got released from Rotherham, because I'd been releasing music throughout, there was moments in my music career that many people were starting to hear about me. So I thought to myself, if I put more energy into this, what can I do with it? Yeah, I've been blessed to have done some incredible things in my music career so far, and one of them is winning the Morbo Unsung Award in early 2019. And then after winning that, I then went on to the Rap Game UK on BBC Three.
We recognise that whilst there's lots of good work going on across the clubs in supporting those players that weren't continuing at the academy, there was an opportunity for us to standardise that through new rules and making sure that, as a minimum, every club provided a 3-year aftercare programme for their scholars that weren't offered a professional contract.
Of course, being released doesn't necessarily mean the end of football. Loads of famous faces have been released and still gone on to have successful football careers. Harry Kane, Jamie Vardy, Declan Rice, and Andy Robertson, just to name a few.
I realised very quickly that I just wasn't ready for Spurs' first team at that stage. So I went out on loan to Cambridge, which is where I am now, then went on to Rangers, came back to Spurs, and the club had sort of said to me like, at this stage you're not ready for the first team, so there's basically no point of you being here and going, push on from your career.
So really watch this time. If you do get it wrong...
And even if you're not in the game any longer, it doesn't mean you resign from the sport.
In April 2021, I set up my own coaching business with my best mate. Since 2021, we've been building up, but we go into schools doing PE provision and football sessions. We have regular training sessions on a night, which kids can attend. We do one-to-one sessions. We go into different schools and environments and do career talks about some of our experience as pros. And we also do holiday camps as well for the kids to access.
The women's game is still growing, so for girls, the system has had less time to establish itself.
I actually got scouted for the boys' team, Arsenal. Academy when I was younger, and then as I got closer I had this little ponytail and they were like, we want to invite you for a trial for the girls team. For girls it was a little bit different because there wasn't as many of us.
So obviously the academy system for women is kind of in its infancy compared to men's, right? And it's playing catch up quickly, I think. Not necessarily in a good way.
There's a lot more pressure in the women's game now because there's more visibility, because there's more eyes on the women's game. I'm seeing the demographic of the women's game, people going to the games, so different. It used to be little girls that just used to go with their mums and it's a family environment, which it is. Now I'm seeing dads go. Now I'm seeing dads thinking, actually, I thought it was my son that could have been in professional football. Now my daughter can be the next Alessia Russo. So it's a good thing. But at the same time, I'm always mindful, don't put too much pressure on young kids because for me, all that matters is you enjoy it.
There's no doubt they're not resourced to the same level, they don't get the same facilities. And on the face of it, that looks like that's a big problem. But at the same time, I would say, be careful what you wish for in that space because some of the problems in the men's game around the under-21s is down to this perception of what money means.
Going through the academy setup as a young footballer, I'm extremely grateful for the experiences, so the friends I made, the matches I played, the environment I was in, because it was such a fun and exciting time. And then in addition to that, I developed so much as a person.
I think it's really hard to prepare anybody for that first initial rejection. But I think they do try, and I do think the Premier League's trying, I do think the FA's trying, I do think the clubs are trying, and the introduction of some of these aftercare programmes is really helpful. I think it's just a case of doing more and more and more to show kids different avenues that they can go down if it doesn't work out.
Despite the tough environment that it is, you very rarely would come up against somebody who would turn it down because of the opportunity in the end to do something that they love doing as their career.
Where to next for the academy system?
Yeah, I think we want to encourage that aspiration and each young child's right to dream and chase some of their goals and aspirations. So that's something that we absolutely want to protect. I guess the job of all of the adults working in the system is to make sure that we're providing an environment that is appropriate for the young people that are within it, and recognising that the majority of them are children, and that's a responsibility that we take seriously.